I'm Dr. Hilda Muller. I'm here to present on the topic literary forms. So here literary forms. So before going to the topic, so what is literary forms? Literary forms are a form of literature where, depending upon the structure and style, forms are divided into four genres. One is poetry, prose, drama and fiction. So here we are going to discuss about all the four topics here. So first going into the first genre, poetry. So what is poetry? So poetry, as we know, all cannot become poets. So poet should have a passion towards love, affection, emotions. He must be able to express his emotions or her emotions through writings. So here he can express himself. So without poetry, so there is no, there cannot be a poet. So first, how can we understand poetry? So understanding poetry actually requires four key forms. So it is lyric, ballad, sonnet and ode. So here we are going to discuss about all four forms, poetic forms. So first one. So first, what is poetry? As I already told earlier, poetry is a form of poet's emotions. So and it comes about his emotions, feelings, and it really be true. So there can be only truth and thoughts perceived in the ideas of the poet. So next, so what is a poetry actually we can talk about here, no? It's just an imagination. So nothing else but imagination of the poet. So it can be about anything, what he feels, his emotions, his expressions. There can be nothing else except his thoughts and feelings conveyed to the audience. So that is poetry. So here, next poetry. So it can be divided into two forms of poetry. One is subjective poetry, the other one is objective poetry. So here, what is the meaning of subjective poetry? Subjective poetry is actually like subjective poetry. The subject will be the author's feelings and emotions. So here as we talk, so they won't be outside the author's emotions. Everything will be the author's emotions. So next what we're going to discuss about is so language. So what are the language? Whatever the author tries to say, it can be in any form of language. So it can be meter, rhythm. So there are many similes will be there. So according to that, the author can give a comparison. He can use metaphor, he can use irony, whatever you want, he can use, and he can write a poetry. So subjective poetry is actually the author's feelings and emotions. So it cannot be outside the author's feelings and emotions. So one example of subjective poetry you can talk about in literature is actually Wordsworth's The Solitary Reaper. So here in Solitary Reaper, it's actually written by the author William Wordsworth. So here what are we talking about Solitary Reaper? As I told you, subjective poetry comes under subjective poetry where the author is expressing his own emotions and feelings. So the speaker, he is trying to convey about a woman. So he is going to a new place where he sees a young maiden, so actually reaping the fields. So when he sees the women reaping the fields, so he can also visualize that the women, the young lady, she is singing a song. So the song, actually you can talk about the language. The author cannot understand the language because it's a totally new language. But there is, as we know, there is no rule to music. So that has no languages. So there is no language to music. So the author, what he's trying to say, even if he cannot understand the language also, what he's trying to say is he enjoys the music. So the music, what he is trying to say here is the author's emotions and feelings. So when he's going across the fields, what he's doing, he's literally actually comparing it to that of a nightingale. So when he sees the lady, he's actually delighted by the beauty and he's captivated by the ideas and thoughts of how a girl without any stress or without any tension, how she is relaxingly enjoying a life, doing a daily routine as with the singing a song. So that's what we can see in solitary reaper. This is totally the author's emotions. So nothing else is expressed in this poem. So now we saw subjective poetry. Now we will go on to objective poetry. So talking about objective poetry, as I told you, objective poetry mainly focuses on apart from author's ideas. So here, the author looks around, see whatever he can view, he visualizes and writes a poetry. So things happening around him and what is happening around others also, he is writing it in the form of a objective poetry. So there can be so many themes and so many, it can be themes of love, it can be war, so historical events, true events, anything it can be, musical events. So whatever he sees around him, he captures this and writes in the form of a poetry. So it can be about war, and whatever he hears also, he can write it in the form of a poetry. So that is called objective poetry. So here the object he is searching from outside, so not from within himself. He is searching around things around him and gets the object. So it can be a bird or whatever it is, so currently which is happening before him. So things, true events, he is writing it in the form of a objective poetry. So that's what here we call this as a objective poetry. So that's what I said, it can be about society, any true based events, any historical events, anything it can be. So that is called objective poetry. So now, we know it's about subjective poetry and objective poetry. So now going deep into the poetry. So poetry, so just like that, writing doesn't mean poetry. So there should be some elements in it. So what are the basic poetic forms of poetry? As I told you, there can be lyrics, ode, ballad, I told you. So many forms of poetic forms are there. So first one, so what is lyric? So in a poetry, if you take without lyric, there cannot be any poetry. So lyric plays a major part in poetry. So that's what they say, lyric poetry. So poetry in lyrics. So there will be no lyrics. So lyrics itself we call it as a poetry. So lyric is called as a poetry. So here what is it for lyric? So what are the things we need for lyric? As I told you, a poetry should have emotions. A poet expressing his emotions in the form of lyric. So here so a person who wants to become a poet or write a poem should first write a lyric. So that lyric should he should visualize, he should imagine, and he should write. So that's what he can write. So there are so many forms of poetry, as you can say. So many themes you can take from lyrics. So lyrics, it doesn't mean that it can be only about yourselves. It can be anything about love, about nature. So any theme you can take about social events or about society, historical events, true events, anything that is happening, and whatever you want to convey to the society also, that also can be expressed in the form of a lyric. So that is called lyric. So it will be lyric can be written in the form of a metaphor, simile. So many forms of lyrics are there. So they use so many elements are there. Satire can be used. So these are the elements which can be used in lyric. And next, what else they say? So lyric poetry. So talking about lyric poetry, here we have taken one example from literature. That is Ode to Nightingale by John Keats. So what is the author here talking about Ode to Nightingale? So from the topic itself, from the title itself, we come to know that nightingale means something the author is trying to say it's about a bird. So a nightingale is a bird. So here the author, he is describing about a nightingale. So here you can talk about the experiences. The author actually he is talking about the experiences with the nightingale. So he is comparing the nightingale to that of what is it? Life which is happening. So comparative study of a nightingale. So how it's singing. So even though the bird is very happy and singing, he's comparing us with our sorrows, human emotions. So how we are sad. So when you hear to listen to the song of a nightingale or a cuckoo, how happy we can be. Why? Because listening to music itself gives us happiness. So here when comparing to this one, Nightingale's poem, so author is comparing himself to the sufferings which people are facing. So that's what we can come to learn from Ode to Nightingale. And now, second element of poetry, as I told you, first lyric is over. So we talked about lyrics, what are the forms of lyrics and how lyrics are used and what are the themes are used. And now we will go to the second form of poetry. So poetic forms, that is called elegy. From the word elegy itself, we know that elegy means something which is not very happy. A poet who writes about elegy, that is elegy as a form, means a tribute. That means the author is very sad. He is missing dear ones. He is missing his beloved ones. So when an author, that is a person who is writing a poem, so lyric poem or poem when he is writing, he will write it in the form of sadness. So there will be only sadness, lamentation, crying, everything that will be there. So there won't be any happiness. So apart from lyrics, if you take lyric sonnet, so lyric form of poem, so it can be anything. There can be happiness, it can be feelings, it can be just an imagination, anything it can be. But here elegy means it's purely sorrow. So you are lamenting on behalf of your loved one. So you miss someone, so that's why you are writing a elegy. So here elegy is known, so there are so many forms of elegy. And then one classical example of elegy is Liliacs and Memorandum. So one more example also I would like to quote. So that is actually Rugby Chapel. So here, what is the meaning of Rugby Chapel? So here the Rugby Chapel is actually written by Matthew Arnold. Here the author, he is writing this lyric poem in the form of an elegy. So here what is he trying to say? So here if you can take, you can see the poet laments the loss of his father. His father is dead. He is a school teacher, and what happens? He dies for some reason. So reasons are unknown. So when he is dead, so he couldn't he couldn't actually understand if he is feeling very loneliness. He misses his father really so much that what he does is actually he writes in the form of an elegy. So here you can see how his father is actually a very strong person, and how he was in school, and how people were there around him, and how actually his father made him happy. So these are the things he is trying to portray in elegy. And moreover, what is he trying to say? When someone is dead, what are the things you should do? You must be able to overcome. So you must be able to overcome your triumphs, temptations. So everything you must be able to go on. So that's what the author is trying to say in actually Rugby Chapel. So Rugby Chapel is actually a chapel. Actually, it's a chapel where his father actually was a headmaster in that school. So the loss of his father really made him very sad, to that extent that he actually written a poem in memory of his father. So that is Rugby Chapel. So next one, as I told you, there are two forms. So now we have the third form. So what is the third form of poetry? So third form of poetry, as you can take poetic forms, you can have like ballad. So as I told you, I was talking about lyric, and I was talking about elegy, and then I was talking about ballad. So ballad is actually a form of lyrical poetry. It's not like elegy. So elegy, if you take, you can talk about its mourning, sufferings, everything it is there. Okay, but ballads, it's actually